Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great,
Yes,
great.
we hear you, 90.
Yes, I can hear you too. Good. Hello, Bartek. Great that you can join.
Hello, hello. It's a pleasure
Hello.
on my side. I'm just trying to post about the spaces. Just give me please a second
No
so I can
worries.
organize everything.
Thank you. To everyone that's joining, we're just getting everything ready for the start of the session. So we'll start in about 1 minute. Hello, Shashi. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, glad to have you on board. We are just missing Travis from High Street, and then we should be ready to go. All right, let's get started. We are currently still adding Travis, so we will see when he joins, but let's get the session started. So again, welcome everyone to another edition of our Roundtable Twitter Spaces, which is hosted by Morningstar Ventures. So in the past years, what we've seen is definitely a rise in the NFT and the Metaverse space with the projects that have been started within Web3. But alongside that, we have also seen a lot of mainstream adoption from big Web2 fashion, tech, and consumer brands who have essentially taken an interest in how they can enter the metaverse or start their own NFT collection. And this really included, or it still includes, globally known brands like Dolce & Gabbana, Nike, Diesel, Porsche, and so on and so forth. And these companies have already entered the Web3 ecosystem. So in today's session, we will talk about just that, and we want to dig a little bit deeper into this topic and discuss what it means to build a brand collaboration in the NFT and metaverse space. So joining our panel today are three founders who have worked with some of the brands mentioned above and know a great deal about onboarding Web2 companies to Web3. We are talking to Shashi Menon, the CEO and founder of UNXD, Travis Wu, the CEO and co-founder of HighstreetWorld, and Bartek Sibiga, co-founder and CEO of Fancy Bears. Now, before we get started with our round of introductions from our guests, if you haven't joined one of our sessions in the past, I am your host, Naini, and co-hosting with me is my colleague, Peter. Just some good housekeeping before we get started. So we will talk to all of our guests for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we will open up the Q&A to our audience towards the end of the session. So during the session, if you do have a question that pops to mind, do feel free to put it in the comment section and also react with the emoji button. If you're dialing in from mobile, this can all be found on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you want to ask a question live during our Q&A session, you will also have to dial in via mobile so that we can admit you as a speaker and you can ask your question directly to one of our guests. Okay, let's get started with our round of introductions. So Bartek and Shashi, thank you so much again for joining us. If you could please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your project and also how you got started in crypto. Bartek, why don't you go first?
Okay, thank you so much one more time for invitation. I'm glad to be here, and cheers to all the fancy bears who are joining. I just posted the link on the Discord, so hopefully I will see more more of our community joining soon. Yes, so my background is marketing. Like before the marketing, I even had a quality for Olympics, and then I built influencer marketing platform. So I programmed the first platform connecting influencers with the brand, and now this is one of the biggest influencer marketing agency in Central Eastern Europe. So this is kind of my background, and then together with Jacob, my partner, who is more from the e-commerce space, we decided to join Web3 space, start building in this space. So we started with Fancy Bears. So this is the project that you can see on my PFP, and you can see on a few holders here joining us today. We sold out in 8 minutes. It was last January. And then we started to explore more of the Web3. We built the whole dynamic NFT infrastructure. So literally dynamic NFT infrastructure allows you to change your metadata in NFT. So like normally the NFT used to be static. With what we built, it can be dynamic. And yeah, we are still building on top of it. We work with many brands. We gonna launch really soon some very big drop with one of the fashion brands. And that's pretty much that.
Great, thank you for your introduction. And you broke up a little bit at the beginning. Can you repeat the sentence you said with the Olympics?
Oh, I had qualies for Olympics, but the thing is I couldn't make it because of injury. So my story was I was not whole my life, but a really long part of my life, I was really preparing for the Olympics, doing World Cup, has qualification. They have torn my ligament, and that was professional sport. And that is how I programmed the platform, and that's how I started like my business part of life.
Okay, very interesting. Well, we're glad to have you in the Web3 space. It would have been cool to see you in the Olympics as well, but it's good to see you as a founder here. Shashi, how about you?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Shashi, how about you? Could you give us a quick intro, how you got started in crypto and a bit about UNXD?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Nayani. So I'm the founder and CEO of UNXD, and we are writing luxury's next chapter. So what we do as a company is that we partner with some of the world's leading luxury brands, and we bring them into Web3 and the metaverse more broadly through a slate of crypto native products and experiences. And each brand that we launch forms part of an expanding ecosystem for luxury digital assets. So our team actually comes from a background in both crypto and in luxury. On the crypto side, we've been investors in the space since 2015. And on the luxury side, it's been a little bit longer, about a decade now for us. In 2009, we started a media company that partnered with a very well-known global media company called Condé Nast, and we launched their first publication in the Middle East in 2012, which was a digital fashion publication. And then 6 years ago, we became the youngest team to ever launch an edition of Vogue when we launched Vogue Arabia, which also happened to be the first ever digital first launch for the Vogue brand. And over the past 6 years, we've grown Vogue Arabia into one of the largest editions of Vogue globally. And then we also launched Wired magazine in the Middle East in 2019. And so we've kind of been operating at this intersection of luxury, technology, crypto, and culture for a long time. And I think that the really critical word here for us is culture, which is the lens through which we look at the world and everything really. And we're really coming at everything that we do from the perspective that we're actually a culture company that just so happens to be enabled by technology and not a technology company that's going out in search of culture. And that probably sounds like a subtle difference, but for us, it's a much deeper, more profound perspective that we have, which is just backed by years of being creators of culture ourselves. And the perspective that we have for luxury particularly comes just from being deeply embedded in that world for such a long time, which is where all the relationships we have within the space have been forged. But we didn't actually know that we would end up here. We didn't set out to be an NFT or a crypto company, but somehow everything that we've been working on, both professionally and personally for the last 10 to 12 years, led to where we are now and gave us a background that I think not that many people have. But as it relates to NFTs specifically, in early 2021, we had this sort of crystallizing light bulb moment where we realized that NFTs were more a product of culture than technology. And that really resonated with us and how we saw ourselves. So we've been working with Dolce & Gabbana for a very long time, given our work with Vogue, and we knew the designers and the leadership team there very well. So we approached them in early 2021 with the idea of launching an NFT collection. And it came from a place of collaboration and credibility since we'd worked with them for so long. So we set out together to create a unique collection that was authentic to their brand and to the community overall, which we called Collezione Genesi. And that was a very small, very specific NFT collection. It was actually only 9 NFTs that we created. They were all one of ones. They were museum grade pieces that were inspired by the city of Venice, which is where we revealed the collection in Italy. And the designs themselves were all very photorealistic digital designs that were created by UNXD's internal studio. But 5 of the pieces in the collection featured physical versions of the item. So actually real world physical products. But all 9 of the pieces came with this overarching utility framework and access to some of Dolce & Gabbana's most exclusive and intimate events that take place in the real world. And the specific utility framework, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later, of physical, digital, and experiential, has really formed the basis of all of the drops that we do at UNXD, and effectively have kind of become membership passes into these exclusive worlds that the brands themselves are already creating in the real world. So that launch collection for us sold for about $6 million, making it the highest value digital fashion collection that's ever been released. And the pieces themselves were bought by some of the largest collectors in the space, including Pranksy, including Seed Phrase, who holds the only 7-trait CryptoPunk, and an entire DAO called Red DAO, which was specifically created to participate in our first drop as UNXD. And some of those same buyers actually ended up believing in our vision at UNXD so deeply that they went on to invest in the company itself.
Amazing. Thanks for the introduction, Shashi, and also for letting us know a little bit more about your Dolce & Gabbana collaboration. I'm also a pretty avid reader of Vogue, so that's very exciting to hear that your team launched that and being one of the youngest teams. We definitely will get a little bit more into the utility and talk about the physical, digital, and experiential framework of brand collaborations. But we do also have one last guest, which is Travis Wu from High Street. Thank you for joining us. If you could give us a quick introduction of who you are, how you got started at crypto, and a a summary of High Street.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I was late. I totally missed the time here. The time difference is really hard for me to calculate sometimes, but it's all good. So my name is Travis. I think a lot of our community members are here, but we started High Street around the height of the pandemic when we saw an opportunity that could combine commerce with gaming. A lot of us came from the VR space since early 2015, and it took a lot of convincing back then to get brands to see the value in digital worlds and stuff like that. So in a way, the pandemic sort of accelerated the industry to where it's at today. And High Street now, we're an MMORPG game, so similar to World of Warcraft or MapleStory. And in a way, we're kind of building this new flourishing digital world, filling it with commerce, culture, and good old fashioned gaming. From afar, I think structurally, we're designed like any other MMO. You have monsters to defeat, you got abilities to develop, characters to level up, and of course, places to explore. But I think the more interesting thing here is how we kind of build these locations within the cities. In a way, you can look at Hyrule from Zelda, or you can look at the various different specified gaming worlds that maybe even like Mario's Rainbow Road and stuff like that. They're all sort of towns that and regions that exist wholly within the game itself. For us, High Street develops partnerships with real world brands, and they could be crypto or traditional brands. So while the main storyline of High Street is crafted completely in-house by our design team, it is written with such flexibility that brand stories and narratives can be easily interwoven into these quest lines, making the tapestry even more vibrant. I think this unique game design means that High Street will never be complete, as there will always be new brands to collaborate with, and we'll build these new regions for people to explore. We like to think of ourselves as building sort of like a brand-centric Disneyland every time we introduce a new region. So recently we rolled out with the whole Animoca archipelago idea, right? Where it's an island chain, and because Animoca is such a big player within Web3, a lot of these attractions along this little island that forms this island chain, essentially highlights each of these brands that have invested in, or each of these games projects that represent holistically Animoca brands itself. And I think this is kind of where the fun begins for us. We talk to the brands, we talk to them, we understand, what their story is about, and we craft stories within High Street around those branded stories. And in a way, our players get to explore them, go through them, kind of like exploring Disneyland, but at the same time, the whole thing kind of ties back into the central main quest line of our MMORPG. So yeah, that's a quick highlight of our backstory. But yeah, sorry again for being late.
No worries. You were right on time for your introduction. So timing was on your side, actually. Thank you for your introduction, Travis. So obviously we're here today to talk about brand collaborations in the NFT and Metaverse space, and all three of you have different yet similar projects. And one of the things definitely all three of you have is you're very fun and also very culture driven, which is great. But to go into the kind of the why element of this question is what we were wondering is, so why are brands like, Shashi, you're working with Dolce & Gabbana and obviously Valentino, and then Bartek, you're also working with Diesel, and Travis with 8-Bit. So why are these brands coming to Web3 companies like yourselves in the first place? What is exactly the ask when they approach you? Are they thinking about, opening up another marketing funnel? Is it a new revenue stream? What are the main entry points? Whoever wants to take this question first, I will let them answer.
I guess I can go.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the answer is probably a little bit of everything. And echoing something that Travis mentioned just a few moments ago, not that long ago, brands still had to be convinced that there's value in Web3 and crypto. And I think now some of that has gone. At this point, there have been enough successful use case that almost none of the brands that that we're talking to need to be convinced of the opportunity. But still, whenever you have these shocks to the system that impact how people think about the overall volatility of the space, and whether it's like a safe space to be in, I think that doesn't help. But I think a little bit more broadly, if done in the right way, entering Web3 can bring a combination of things. It can bring commercial success, it can bring marketing success, it can bring positioning success, it can bring access to completely new audiences, exploration of new products, and new ways to engage with their existing audience as well. And so I think to nail all of these things really involves thinking about it on a long-term basis. I think one of the things that we really emphasize with every brand that we work with, and we're starting to see more of this just in general, is that to succeed in this space, you have to be willing to be in it for both the right reasons and for the long term, even if your initial experiments in the space just don't work. I think where a lot of brands that were entering the space initially kind of got it wrong, where they saw it just as this like isolated campaign-led approach where there was a start and stop and that was it. But for us, we really only work with brands on a long-term basis. Every single relationship that we have is a multi-year exclusive relationship, and it's really only with brands who we feel are prepared to explore a strategy that integrates this ethos across their entire organization. And when that's the starting point, I think that there's a lot more opportunity to build things that ultimately will be meaningful to end consumers, whether they're new audiences or existing consumers.
Absolutely. I love that answer because, we've talked to a lot of brands who come to us and, they're looking for consultants. They're looking for people to do an NFT drop and stuff like that. And we don't want to touch anything that's unsustainable. So if you're here for a marketing campaign, I mean, you can find a bunch of other, consulting companies out there who do an NFT drop for you just to fulfill that hype cycle. But I think a lot of it with brands exploring this stuff is also FOMO, and I think a lot of traditional brands and maisons have felt the innovation tech has brought to their market over the past couple of decades. Shopping used to be so simple. You open a store, and if your product is good and your service is excellent, you have a business. Then came e-commerce, where a lot of traditional brands all of a sudden felt, shook to the core because some of the they start seeing these self-taught designers on Shopify working from a basement with no physical locations or stores started to rival, in sales and stuff like that. Many couldn't keep up, and many missed the boat entirely and are still trying to play catch up today in terms of e-commerce and technology and stuff like that. But I think at the end, tech being this great equalizer, allowing anyone to start a brand is something that is so obvious now. And with the concept of gaming and metaverse captivating an entire generation of youth, I think a lot of these brands are now trying to learn from their previous mistakes and not underestimate kind of the power of technology. So now they're kind of jumping the gun, not wanting to be left out. They want to be, in the news. They want to be in the spotlight. But some of them are actually innovating as well on figuring out, okay, how is it similar? How is this new stream of Web3 or gaming similar to the internet as we know it today in terms of e-commerce with Amazon or Shopify, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's really a very exciting time for brands to experiment. I think hopefully in the next cycle, things will become a lot more normalized.
Bartek, go ahead.
Yes, so I maybe add something, but from the other side, why brands are not joining now the Web3, because my experience of the brands, it's much longer than just this Web3 part, because I got the agency we are working with, like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Samsung, like all those, pretty much everyone who is active in social media. So for all the brands, like what we need to understand, like on the end, they know that something is a risk-free, and that's why the barrier of entry into NFT space for them it's pretty big, because it's kind of a risky, and not everyone can really experiment with this right now. So I can give you an example of how I don't know, it was 6 years ago started. I was going for all marketing conferences talking about the TikTok. And everyone, it was called Musical.ly by then, and everyone was laughing. Hey, what is this platform? You got like 10-year-old kids dancing. It doesn't make any sense. And I think the process here will be kind of the same. It just needs to take a really long time for most of the brands. Of course, it's amazing that Dolce & Gabbana, Gucci, and those luxury brands are already exploring stuff. But yeah, we as we think about Web3 and what's gonna happen, we really believe it's gonna be super long run, because I am super bullish on Web3. I believe all assets that we hold physically will have their digital twins. This is also something what we're doing. And because I'm so much in social media, influencers, KOLs, I know that those people, like most of the young generation, they care about more what is happening in the digital world, like how they look like on Instagram or in Roblox, how they really look like in the real life. So I'm super bullish. I really believe we're gonna tokenize all those assets in the future. But yeah, it will definitely take time. And I think the most hard thing is right now to provide to brands some way for the easy entry, right? So we are looking for those kind of a product where this barrier to entry is really low, that the brands can really test something, not risking their reputation. So for example, if a brand cannot do their own drop, or they are scared to do the drop because it's hard to, they're scared that the price will go down and they won't build the community, we are starting with something much smaller, like those digital twins, right? So for example, right now we integrate with all the e-commerces. We already did it with 6 brands, where we pick the product, and if people are buying those products, they are getting the digital twin, like a 3D digital twin of a hoodie, of a jacket. And then with this digital twin, you can put it on your avatar, onto using dynamic NFT onto another NFT, and in the future, you will be able to take it to all the games in Metaverse. And this is one approach where we really see brands are much more open for this. And the reason is simple. For them, it's more e-commerce tool than really a Web3 tool. Because for them, when they look in the statistic, they just say, okay, on those products that got this digital twins, we get much better conversion than on other products. So I think we all here we really need to work and think like together we really can onboard all those main brands, not only those luxury one. And I think it's gonna be a long road, but yeah, eventually everyone will be in Web3.
Thanks for the great thoughts. Let's go deeper into the collaborations with the brands. So, Travis, could you please deep dive into your partnership with the apparel brand 8-Bit? What are you trying to achieve by this collaboration? And do you agree with the slogan, when tech meets fashion, physical meets digital, when Web2 brands enter the metaverse? And Shashi, Bartek, what do you think also about these words?
So something we've been exploring recently, I talked about how e-commerce had disrupted the traditional brick and mortar brands. Continuing that thought, think about how it's disrupted the psychological experience of purchasing goods as well. Back in the days, shopping is quite social. You go to the mall maybe with friends, and everything is an adventure. You don't know what brands or products you're going to find. And then with modern technology, that social aspect kind of gave way to social media instead. Now the shopping experience, has now been replaced by just one search bar. Usually you know exactly what you want already. Maybe you saw an influencer wearing it or talking about it, or perhaps it's advertised to you directly on Instagram or Facebook. That sense of adventure of shopping kind of disappeared completely, making it very difficult for brands to differentiate themselves in a super saturated market. So enter the metaverse. Once again, I think a hard reset here is possible. Shopping in the metaverse isn't going to replace e-commerce. However, they can be two sides of the same coin, I think, supplementing different experiences. On your phone, I think you have the most efficient checkout process. You type in what you want on Amazon and select a one-click checkout process. You swipe, and then all of a sudden the next day your product arrives. I think in the metaverse, you get to go on an adventure. As kids today age out of Roblox and develop more of a refined taste for, either luxury or products in general, maybe that's when they can potentially travel to high street and with the same controls and user experiences, user interfaces that they're accustomed to in Roblox today, they can discover new and exciting brands like 8-Bit, where virtual try-ons, synchronize directly to their Shopify profiles, where a sweater keeps you warm in real life, but also becomes a piece of armor in a video game. So I think that's the ultimate consummation of tech and fashion. To us, I think there's a lot of very well-established brands out there, but we look at ourselves as a tech company and we try to see, okay, what can we see or what can we do that create metaverse native companies, right? So how Shopify created an entire generation of mom and pop shops or brands that are independent without these long history. What is the metaverse going to do with shopping and commerce? Can we nurture and create and foster an environment where brand new brands can come on board? Can these kids who are playing Roblox today become the next generation of brand owners, right? This is something that we actively think about. How do we craft and create new brands that are born natively out of this entirely new gaming interface and ecosystem. So that's kind of our thought process and why we work with 8-Bit in the first place, because I think they're super innovative. Obviously, John is a very experienced designer. He's got multiple brands before this, and most of his products are in all the biggest department stores, whether it's like Bloomingdale or Renfrew or Saks on Fifth. These are all essentially department stores that are fairly mainstream and has all that visibility. So by working with them, you kind of get the best of both worlds. They're targeting the new, the young. They're relatively niche and novel brand, but at the same time, they have established relationships that we can kind of piggyback off of. So it makes it a perfect sort of partnership to explore and test these new concepts. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Trace, for the great thoughts, especially about social experience of shopping, which are very important, especially when you do it remotely in the metaverse, where many people still feel a bit alone. And I would like to proceed with the topic with the Shashi's and UNXD experience of working with the luxury brands. Recently, you have started an important partnership with the luxury Italian brand Valentino. And in which way are you planning to support them? And what is the main difference in collaborations between casual brands and luxury ones in terms of communication, work with audience, work with brands itself, especially in the Web3 space and with all NFT and digital aspects, including technology, including new customer experience and shipping experience, and so on and so on?
Sure. Yeah, I think let me just start by giving a quick introduction to Valentino for those who may not be as familiar with them. So Maison Valentino is probably by far the most iconic Italian couture house in the world and one of the most iconic institutions in fashion in the luxury sector globally. The brand is just over 60 years old. It started in Rome, actually. And so it has a lot of heritage, and it's widely revered among fashion consumers. The brand has a global audience of tens of millions of people across both digital and traditional platforms, and a very large global footprint with something like 220 almost boutiques that they directly operate around the world and over 1,100 or so points of sale worldwide. So an incredibly large reach around the world. So in terms of what we're doing, we're actually not yet revealing some of the finer details of what we're releasing with them, but it's not that far away. But with this collaboration, I think on a broader level, the plan is to explore the specific intersection of virtual fashion, physical craftsmanship, and curated community experiences, both in the real world and digitally. And really coming back to this idea of our kind of underlying utility framework at UNXD and our track record of building and blending digital, physical, and experiential touch points. The partnership is really about trying to explore the ways in which consumers, both existing and new, can interact with the Valentino brand across products, across stores, across stories, across events, and more than that. In terms of luxury brands, I think one of the challenges and the exciting parts about working with luxury brands is just that they're incredibly specific about everything, from the way in which the brand looks and what you do as a brand in terms of product, in terms of what events and experiences look like, both digitally and physically. And it really forces you to create things that are just incredibly specific and incredibly curated, and we really like that. But I think it's also a good place to quickly touch upon a specific topic that we are very often asked about, which is what quote unquote traditional brands can bring to the table in Web3. And when I think back to UNXD's first collection, there are really 5 areas that I think we hit, which made it a winning proposition when we launched: provenance, physical and digital craftsmanship, a multi-platform consumer experience, storytelling, and community. And when we first launched in 2021, I think we were early proponents and leaders in all of these areas, and some of them have now been adopted by a lot of different projects, particularly the physical and experiential side of things. And looking at traditional luxury brands, they bring incredible value across all 5 of these pillars, really emanating from the creativity of the designers themselves. And more specifically, what luxury brands are really incredible at is building very intimate, very human-led experiences in the real world. And I think how we like to think about our role at UNXD, it's to help shape and direct that creativity and help to bridge the intimacy and the magic of the physical world and experience into the digital world. So legacy brands really have a lot of experience in that regard. And the brands that we work with have a really deep understanding of storytelling and how to build desirability through storytelling and through scarcity and through craftsmanship. And I think ultimately that's a really great parallel to just the very concept of NFTs.
Thank you so much, Shashi, for the great thoughts and revealing some more details on collaborations with the luxury brand. And I would like to move on to the next important topic of today's roundtable, because NFT and Metaverse is all about the community, about gathering great creative people together. As we also can see right now, many people with the PFPs of Fancy Bears right now listening us. Thank you so much. And I want to ask Bartek, as you are founder of NFT collection, and you have launched with the Fancy Bears kind of metaverse club where users can interact with athletes, influencers, and celebrities. And in terms of community, how do you manage communication between average NFT holders and celebrities who joined NFT world? And how do you keep this special club atmosphere in Fancy Bears community?
Okay, so I have to say we are now in the bear market, and it is much harder than it used to be. Of course, it's a joke, but kind of it is like this. So right now we are really it's a really big challenge to keep the community engaged all the time, because we launched over a year ago, right? We are in this bear market phase where some people are really like losing their hope that the projects will ever go back in price and will ever have so much exposure as they used to do. So I have to say it's a pretty hard job. But since we started, nearly every week we were doing Twitter Spaces right now, and also Discord, like Discord voice chat. So every week we're trying to invite people. We're trying to invite our holders, as many as we can, and there's also a lot of holders joining those spaces just on their own. So this is like, if you want to really create a community, and if you really want it to be engaged, it is constant work. Like, it never ends. You need to be there nearly 24 hours for them all the time. Answer the questions, explain the things, because there's many times we have the situation that someone is coming, he was not following the project, and then he's asking the same questions or asking about something that we're explaining so many times. So this is like a really hard work, and I'm saying it because I think it's also a super huge challenge for the brands. If some of the brands want to really like build a community based on some kind of digital collectibles, it is definitely not easy, and this is also where we can definitely help them. But yeah, in terms of how we also connect, like what I really love about when I was now on NFTLA, I met so many holders who are just, because I usually, if you don't know me privately, if you know me privately, you know that I usually get only two t-shirts. One is my Bored Ape t-shirt, and the second one is my Fancy Bird t-shirt. So I'm really easy to spot whenever I'm on a conference or somewhere. And yeah, what I really love about this is whenever I go Dubai, LA, I meet so many holders, and this is like always when you see the holder, and I get the same with Bored Ape Yacht Club as Fancy Bears. You always feel like, even though you don't know this person, you always feel like he's one of your best friends because you got the same NFTs, and this is something that is totally amazing about this whole Web3 community. So yeah, I'm definitely trying to do my best to also give this positive vibe to Fancy Bears.
Yeah, definitely. And you can see it, right? There's a lot of Fancy Bear listeners today, and it's cool to also know the t-shirts that you wear. So when next time we're at a conference, we'll look you out. And it's also funny because it's a little bit similar to brands, right? There's so much brand loyalty out there, and there's kind of this community which isn't as strong, I would have to say, as in the Web3 space, but it's still, people are loyal to the brands that they like, and that is maybe why this intersection between brands and NFTs came somewhat naturally, because the values are kind of the same amongst the two. And just going a little bit more into the community aspect and what you were saying, Bartek, Travis, you obviously also have a big community around High Street. How is that for you? How has it been with your experience?
Yeah, I think for us, our community kind of got used to how we do things. We never really chased the hype, like even though the whole market's going up or whatever's going on, we kind of just ignore it and do our own thing at our own pace. A lot of people in a community before, they like to say, "Hey, you guys, take note of this or that." Even our investors would be like, "Yo, you got to get on this." But I think people got since I guess 2021, the bull market followed by the bear trend, all that kind of stuff. They've gotten used to that. We have our own timeline and we follow suit with it. And when we make certain announcements, it might take a while for us to get to fruition, but we get there. Usually at the beginning of the year, we'll come up with milestones and what we're going to achieve and what we're going to do. And for the rest of the year, we just follow that roadmap. It doesn't really matter if suddenly the market turns sour or the market, spikes up. It really doesn't matter for us. It's the same milestones, the same roadmap. We have a team of, about 70 people right now, and everyone knows exactly what they have to do now, next week, next month, next quarter. Everything is kind of written down in a whole, almost like a Gantt chart, but like, a timeline system. So the game basically gets developed and we have different priorities. And obviously a lot of it is focused on R&D. A lot of it is focused on market testing and experiential testing. And being a virtual reality company, a lot of it is kind of under the hood, right? A lot of what we're doing, for example, creating new rendering technology that allows certain things to work better, or essentially having to recreate a whole render pipeline just for something to work on web. There's a lot of like little things here and there that we do behind the scenes that we don't really tell the community or talk about it. And in the beginning, it was just really hard because I think given that there's so many crypto projects out there and a lot of people kind of just disappear and there's like radio silent. But I think our community has gotten used to the fact that, radio silent means we're working on things. And if you wait for it, if you look at our charts, if you look at exactly, the milestones that we announced at the beginning of the year, there's no deviation. Same thing with token releases. People like to speculate on all sorts of different things, but I think we've sort of did this on purpose, where we created a fully transparent system, with binary research and stuff like that, where this is how it's going to work. Everything's smart contract driven, and I suppose with this kind of trust, with the same community, with the same people who are coming in, playing, doing the various challenges and campaigns that we have coming into High Street and actually exploring, you build trust over time, right? And with that, the market shakeup or the volatility of things really don't matter anymore.
Great. Thanks for diving deeper into that as well and telling us about your experience. We have about 2 or 3 more minutes left in our chat, and then we would love to open it up to the audience and see if they have any more questions. So just one last thing we really wanted to hear from you guys is, you were talking about, Bartek, it was you was talking about, having digital twins, and also Shashi, you went into your utility framework, which is all about the physical, the digital, and the experiential. And of course, on your Metaverse in High Street, Travis, you have the opportunity to buy things within the Metaverse, but then you also get them shipped in real life to your home. So there we're talking a lot about, these phygital products. What do you guys think are the limitations actually of phygital products? Where do you think we could see improvement? And what do you think is going to be the future of phygital, specifically thinking about the fact that a lot of these brands that you're working with are consumer-based and experiential-based? Shashi, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think I would say as one starting point, one of the things that we've been really focused on is not being digital only. So I think it's a good segue into this question. But I think a lot of people in this space are not just digital maximalists, but digital absolutists. And I would say that we definitely are not in that class. So we spent a lot of time and energy thinking about how to create a world that is not going to be digital only, but rather how the digital experience can both enhance the physical experience and then in certain cases can be useful on its own. So I think on the physical side, it doesn't really need that much explanation. I think a lot of people already have an intrinsic understanding and acceptance of how physical products and physical experiences have value and why they're meaningful. The question is about how to translate that into the digital world in a way that's meaningful. Today, I think one of the things that's held back the idea of digital fashion, for instance, is just that there isn't enough of an actual use case to be meaningful to people. Things like AR around fashion are still very wonky experiences that aren't particularly good, so they come across as very gimmicky. And I think that one of the things that exists here is that the technology behind this is very forward-looking, but the culture side of it, which is like the real-world use case, doesn't yet exist. So I think, kind of speaking in a little bit of the direction of where Travis is going and what they're building at High Street, I think the gaming side of it is the one area that today can be that opportunity. There are use cases for fashion in gaming in the form of skins, and I think that it's an accepted behavior where you don't have to convince someone why it matters. So I think that's where the future of these sort of digital physical hybrid experiences are going to go, like finding ways where they're actually useful in whatever medium they're in. I'm resisting the temptation to use the word phygital just because I really don't like that word. So I'm not going to lean into that word, but I think really like rooting the context in a real world use case or a real digital world use case that is actually meaningful is what's missing right now.
I agree with you 100%, Shashi. Like, especially, I think like when you create beautiful digital fashion and stuff like that, you need a place to you need a place to show it off. You need to have a place to appreciate it. In real life, fashion has, the fabric, the material. There's so many different things under different light. It behaves differently. Like, there's a lot of things that make fashion so personal that you lose out on when you move to the digital world. And I think as gaming improves, things will get better. For us, we're doing little things right now, right? We have to follow the curve of the technology. If you give me a T-shirt with a pattern on it, if you press F on a keyboard, it should play an animation that is personalized to you. You own this shirt and you get to do this. Recently we were exploring things like it's a hat, but you press a button and when you hop off from a high place, you press, E or something, and the hat turns into a little bit of a helicopter that helps you glide slowly down. Utility within a virtual world where you can challenge physics a little bit, I think makes the most sense, because if you make the exact same product in the digital world, then there's no point to it, right? So I think finding these utilities is definitely something very important. And definitely will probably be the biggest challenge for brands coming in here. How far would they be willing to push it, right? So traditional brands, especially, if you all of a sudden transform their dress into wings that fly off somewhere, that could be against the philosophies of the brand and stuff like that. So I think these are where challenges will come from. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun to explore and dive into this with the designers as well. Another challenge that I see is scale and logistics. So while digital, I know you hate this word, Shashi, but while the physical and digital combination has many quirks that can improve inventory management and data acquisition, I think physical products are harder to access than digital ones, right? You can be anywhere with a VPN and buy an NFT from OpenSea or anywhere else. However, if you want to buy, let's say, Louis Vuitton, depending on where or what city you're in, you're dealing with different parties potentially, or you're dealing with different distributors. You're dealing with very complicated exclusivity that is written in very, very detailed fine prints, right? So for example, we were working with a brand, let's say in Taiwan, but the thing is, this extends to e-commerce as well. Like if you purchase a product and want to ship, it can only ship to Taiwan because they only have regional distribution rights in Taiwan. If you buy it in Canada and you want to ship to Canada, well, I'm sorry, because there's a different distributor over there that handles this brand. So it becomes very complicated for us to go through with this. There are ways to solve this problem. For example, geofencing, right? So in traditional Web 2, if you go to LVMH or Louis Vuitton's website, you default into that specific URL that either ends in .jp, .ca, .com, or wherever you are, and I think that's a very centralized solution, and it's not exactly very Web3, but unfortunately right now it just might be the only way to solve this particular problem. And I admit we haven't figured it out yet, but eventually it might be. If you're logging into High Street from Canada, you might see different stores from when you log in France, for example, because we just don't have the right distributor set up in these locations. We have a wine shop also in High Street right now, and that's very difficult too, because it's 3 or 4 different distributors that we have shipping the exact same vintage globally, because some have America, some don't, and of course state laws, for example, liquor licenses and liquor laws in different states within America is also very different. So these are challenges, and I believe there's a lot more of them coming up that we haven't really even touched on in terms of physical products. But companies like us on this roundtable are doing all we can and experimenting, doing things one at a time to get to that stage in which all of this becomes conventional wisdom, where all of this becomes normalized as e-commerce is today.
Thanks, Travis.
So, yeah,
Bartek, go ahead.
Yeah, I can just add, because we do a lot of phygital stuff with the brands. Of course, we don't call it phygital because I also don't like this word. Or we call it digital twins mostly. Or even when we're going to brands, we're saying digital collectibles, digital twins. We rather call it like this. So I totally agree that the biggest challenge here is real use cases. So, especially when we target people from Web 2 space, right? Because we are targeting normal e-commerce clients. Probably most of them don't even know what is NFT, and for them, like, this kind of education, like what kind of use cases they can have now, what kind of use cases they can have in the future, it's super important. And this is like one of our biggest challenge. So one of the obvious use case we're already using is when you are buying this digital twin, you of course got certificate of authenticity, and we are doing it on the e-commerces, and we also launch it with the physical product on like in a physical shop, where you can use NFC or you can just scan a QR code. But then the challenge is what else we can give to the people. And as I said before, my vision on the end is you go to this Louis Vuitton store, you buy a jacket, you can put it on your avatar and take it to the metaverse. And it sounds really cool, but I have to say, we as this platform that is integrating with many metaverses, I have to say right now is super, super hard, right? So for example, we integrated first with the Decentraland. The Decentraland is pretty easy because they got some kind of functionality that is straight connected to Blender, and we can even change the clothes on NFTs, push it to the Decentraland, and it can really fit what we see then in the metaverse. Of course, the problem is the quality of those models, quality of those wearables in the Decentraland is not that high. But with other metaverses and Web3 games, the problem is every game, every metaverse got kind of different specification, because the physics in the game is different, the physics in the metaverse is different, and every time kind of we need to start integrating this thing from the scratch. So if I would say what is like one of the biggest challenge here, it's some kind of a standard for how to develop the avatars, or maybe we're gonna go so far with computing power that we will be just using motion capture to program all the avatars, and with the motion capture it should be like much easier to put whatever model you want in whatever game you want. But I have to say I would love to connect with you because I think we are trying to build pretty similar thing in the same industry, and yeah, I would love to brainstorm of how we can overcome all those challenges, especially in terms of what kind of use case we can give to all those brands.
Great.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's what these sessions are for, right? To meet new people, to get new ideas. So let's see if we see something in the future. Would be interesting to keep our eyes on that. Guys, it's been a really great talk so far. You have given us a lot of insight from 3 very different perspectives of this industry. It's really good to hear what's happening in the luxury industry, what's happening from the metaverse perspective, and also Bartek from more community dynamic NFTs driven project. And I actually last week I attended a conference, and one of the sessions was on tomorrow's luxury, and none of the speakers were from crypto, of course, which was a bit disappointing. But they did say that they were also very excited about what Web3 will bring to the future of luxury and to the future of e-commerce. So I think you guys are really the drivers of this, and our community can, cultivate what is going to be happening. And I'm also really much looking forward to it. My part and Peter's part is pretty much over now. We are handing it over to the audience. We already have a couple of questions. We have someone in the audience called the Wolf Slayer who has requested to speak. Yes, I will give you the option to speak now to ask your question. This is hello, the Wolf Slayer. If you unmute your microphone, you can ask your question.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Perfect. So my question is for Travis, because he said about geolocking, the high street, and I wanted to tell him something. The second that he said that word geolocking, I was thinking about incognito mode and a good VPN, so I can use the quests that are showing in France and the quests that are showing in USA and Germany and all over the world. Because I can point to 5 people in this chat that's already buying a good VPN to use the high street all over the world. And I hope you have a good plan for that too.
I think the point of geolocking isn't to block people from actually using it. It's just that, for example, if you try to log in, and this is not implemented right now, but let's say like we only have distribution rights for, let's say, Head, the tennis brand in Asia. And let's say, in all simplicity, you're in Canada and you want to see this shop. By all means, you can VPN and hop in and see the shop. But then on the checkout process, you won't be able to ship the product to you. You can buy it, but you won't be able to ship it to you because, in the back end of Shopify, which we tie into our in-game shop system, you're not going to have the option to select your home address in Canada because we only have the distribution rights for this brand in Asia. So, I think this is kind of the
Yeah,
issue. Geolocking is just to make the user experience easier. So you're not looking at brands. So you don't see brands that you can't purchase from, right? So
I understand what
that's
you
kind of
mean, but my point is, for example, when some shops are only available in Asia and some are only available in Canada, there are absolutely, I'm sure there are going to be quest lines exclusively for Asia and quest lines exclusively for Canada. And somebody that's a super fan like me and all the
yeah.
other people that are in this space would absolutely overuse that, like abuse that system
Yeah.
and get a lot of NFTs that way.
Hey, but I
No,
think
I assume so. Yeah, I assume that's exactly what people are going to do. And I think like there's part of me that say, okay, go ahead. That could be very interesting to see how the secondary market dynamic would go. But the other part of me, it's like, okay, well, I think like by doing this, we are doing what the brand likes, which is generating more eyeballs and generating more traffic towards their shops. And obviously, you're learning more about the brands because we weave the brand stories into these quests anyway. So as you're doing this, I think what's really interesting is, everybody wins at this point. We don't really have a full loser except when you want to redeem the product and ship it to yourself. And that's when the trouble comes, where it's like, okay, now do you need a PO box, or how exactly is this going to work? So, again, like this is not a perfect solution, and we don't have the answer yet, unfortunately. As I admit, we just aren't there yet. But I think we either just go ahead and figure out how we can get distributors from all over the world, or relatively all over the world, and go from there. Crypto is challenging because it is so global. Like we can't, unlike a regular tech company where we just say, hey, look, let's start off in this niche market, let's start off in North America, and then grow from there. We can't really do that because our community, we have the Turkish community, we got the Korean community, the Asian community. We have so many different pockets of community that are active. And if you talk to our community managers, as I know you probably do, it's very hard to prioritize because we just have to make sure that everybody is taken care of, right? So that is one of the big challenges indeed.
Thanks, Travis, and thank you, the Wolf Slayer, for your enthusiasm and for volunteering to speak. We always like to hear that. I hope that your questions and your statements were answered. We do have a couple more questions in the chat, but we are running out of time. So I will finish with one question from Breaking Free, which I think is a nice way to round it off. He asks, can you give me 1 or 2 brand names that you would like to see entering the crypto space? And we'll go rapid fire round, just one brand which you would like to see entering the crypto space. Shashi, why don't we start with you, and maybe you can also tell us why.
I think I'm going to give a fairly unsatisfying answer to this, which is that we actually have other brands that we haven't yet announced that we're going to be bringing into the space. But I think more broadly, I can say that there are a lot of more traditional luxury brands that eventually are going to enter the space, and we'd love to see them in. Brands like Chanel or Hermes, for instance. But both of these brands in particular are never really the first to enter a new category, and they do this very intentionally. They kind of methodically study new spaces before they decide to enter, and they know that their brands are powerful enough that even if they're late to the space, there's enough cultural relevance around their brands that's fine. And it's perfectly fine, I think, for a brand to not need to be the first to enter a space as long as it enters meaningfully. So I would say that those are two brands in particular, but we have a handful of brands that we haven't yet announced that we're really excited to bring into the space that have quite a lot of heritage and provenance, and we'll do something interesting with them.
We'll keep our eyes out. Thanks for the alpha already. Bartek, what about you? 1 or 2 brands that you think you would like to see enter the space?
Yeah, so I have to say most of the brands like Nike, Adidas, they already did something in the space. So I think for the good of the space, the best would be to see some old school brand or government related brand. Like the best would be like Jerome Powell minting his own NFT as official Federal Reserve NFTs, because this would bring so much credibility into this space. Yeah, of course, I'm kind of joking, but yeah, most of those luxury brands, they tested out, right? So most of those brands we really want to see, they did it. So I think now it's time for more like brands not really connected to technology, who got like maybe more from like banking system, but there everyone is experimenting with blockchain, right? And paired with crypto. Not everyone with NFTs, so it depends what is the specific question. But yeah, I would love to see some more government related companies to really put a stamp on Web3 to give it credibility and proof this is a future. Like it is a future without them as well, but still they can do it.
All right. And what about you, Travis?
Yeah, so we're working with a lot of, kind of big household names that are not sexy, and we're going to announce a few of them later throughout the year. But for me personally, I really want to see Costco enter the space. I just really like hot dogs, and they did a really good job, and they're global. And if we can have loyalty points with the hot dogs, it'd be fantastic, because I can just, collect points, and maybe it's like trade hot dog NFTs. I think like Costco hot dogs are basically the new stable coin. They really never.
Their pizza's pretty good too. I'll give
Pizza
them
too,
some
yeah.
credit. Give them credit for the pizza.
Is this
the pizza's
a
really
US
good.
thing? Are we missing out here in Europe?
Yeah, it's a wholesale brand, so you
Guys,
can kind of
we
go
have
in
one
and buy like
wholesale in
large
Poland,
amounts of product.
and we are exactly talking about tokenizing hot dogs. Like so for example,
Yeah.
Oh my god, yes please.
You're definitely revealing your Western bias here, Travis.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just really hungry right now, and I saw an ad for a hot dog, so I was like, damn, Costco hot dog would be really good.
and
This is how
And
we
you
know
can,
that
like,
advertising works.
yeah, exactly.
you know what's the best utility? Like 100-year subscription for free for the hot dogs. And we were already, like, really, I'm not kidding.
Oh
We were
god.
talking with one, but Eastern European brand about doing this, that there will be this one NFT where you get like a free hot dogs for 100 years. And they really wanted to do it. And hopefully we're going to do it.
I'll bid for
So
it.
it would be a very unsatisfying experience to be very hungry and be sold an NFT of a hot dog instead.
Exactly. You need to be able to tie it to Uber Eats or something, and so it gets shipped to you too.
Yeah, and within like a minute. They have to be like around the corner. I love it.
Exactly.
We've got government, we've got Chanel,
you will
Hermes,
be
and
printing
we are ending with hot dogs.
I think we should do like 3D printer for the hot dogs, and whenever you buy an NFT,
Oh my god,
you are
yes.
taking a hot dog from the printer.
I mean, they are doing cultured meat right now, so printing meat shouldn't be too difficult, right? So
exactly,
we're in.
Exactly. Peter, do you have a brand that you would like to see enter the space?
Oh, guys already booked all the best brands. That's why I'm already planning the next roundtable about food and in Metaverse and NFT space.
Yeah, exactly. Hot dogs in the Metaverse. What does it mean for the future?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think one brand
What
that I
does it
would be
mean?
curious to see is indeed a little bit, Travis, what you're saying, like food. My family comes from hospitality, and Michelin would be a pretty cool brand to see in the Web3 space. I wonder how that also would tie in with the whole experiential point of it. So that's one brand I think would be cool to enter. Very cool, very.
Oh, we have a surprise for you then later this year.
Okay, because the wine one already intrigued me, so keep me updated.
Yeah, we got something fun with Michelin.
Very, very cool. Guys, it's been such a great talk. I think we could go on for another half an hour or so. And thank you to all our listeners who were dialed in and who've put in all their questions in the comments, and also to the Wolf Slayer for asking your question to Travis. We host these Twitter spaces on a weekly basis. We have a podcast that our colleague Sabi hosts with one-on-one with some of our portfolio companies. And then Peter and I, we host roundtables every second week with like-minded individuals, and we talk about a certain topic in the space. So do keep your eye out on our Twitter page, Morningstar Ventures, and dial in for any new topics that you find interesting. Thank you again, Travis, Bartek, and Shashi. It was really great Also, thank you to Peter, and we will talk in a couple of weeks again. Have a great evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Nani.
Thank you.
Thank you, all listeners.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
very much. I'm going to go get a hot dog.
Same.